All right, everyone. In this final lecture, we're going to be taking a look at a more advanced event handler where we are going to be able to type into a text box in our GUI and see which keys we are pressing. After that, we're also going to be covering the Lambda expressions. So there is inside of your notes a file that has already been created called key_symbol.py, and it is mimicking a keylogger. Essentially, it's an application where you can type things into a text box, and then it will output what keys you are pressing and the numerical representation of those keys. So again, there's a few things here. The first thing that we can do is give our main window a title. And before we go ahead and actually start doing that, why don't we try creating our new functions here. So I'm going to go ahead and create my first function, make window. And then I'll also go ahead and then I'm going to create an event handler because in this scenario, we want to handle an event. Now, I don't know what the handler will be just yet. In our notes, we will have it specified for us. But per usual, I'm going to create my root item here. And before, I'll just put pass in here for the time being so this runs and doesn't give us an error. And what I'm going to say is root.title, and then I could say, I can call this keylogger. Now, if I go ahead and I run this, and let me actually make it so that this automatically runs and we hit run in our script. You'll see up here that instead of saying TK like usual, I now have my keylogger. You also have the opportunity later to change this PNG image. That is a part of one of your labs, but again, making this root.title work is useful. And after we go ahead and do that, we're going to try to do a new type of widget, and this widget is called a text widget. Now, what does this widget do? Well, it's going to be able to display text in various forms, and we could say master is equal to root, and then I can go ahead and give it a width and a height as well. So maybe I'll give it a width of like 50 and a height of 50. And again, this won't show just yet because we didn't pack it or pack it into our code just yet. And after I go ahead and pack it, I'm going to try to make a main loop run here as well. And cool, now we can see that not only do I have a piece of text, and you might have already seen when I click on it, I get a little highlighted cursor here. And if I start typing, I am actually able to type into this text bar. So text right here is a way that you can input values. And of course you can make things where it's like input a value and hit submit to make usernames and so forth. Now there's another option we can create called highlight thickness. And what this will do, if we run it again, is this will make it very obvious that we're highlighting this text bar. And again, if we make this 10, like so, you'll see it's gradually getting larger. So there's a lot of neat little tricks you can make inside of your program to show what's going on. And after we go ahead and fill in this this item right here, we want to also make sure that we can bind this text to an event handler because we want to see what's going on in the background. So what we can say again is text.bind. And what am I going to bind? I'm going to bind keyPress, which is the event that's built into tkinter, into the handler. Now, what will this handler be able to do? Well, what I can simply say here is I can print out the event.keySym and the event.keySymbolNumber. Now, again, these events are all displayed inside of tkinter and what their attributes are as well. You don't need to memorize these. They're in the documentation. There's a ton of them, and we aren't expecting you to memorize all of them. The general idea, again, is that whenever you're doing an event, you will need to bind it to a handler, and that handler will take in a parameter called event, and then you can get more information based on that. So what I'll go ahead and do here, let's try to run this piece of code. And now when I have my keylogger up and I start testing and saying hello world, you will now see that I get my numerical representation of the key symbol and then also the key itself. So again, this is an interesting way to go ahead and handle events and make it so that you can output what's actually going on inside of your code using more event handlers. All right, everyone. So the last thing that we want to focus on is this concept of Lambda expressions, which can be a little confusing when we first see them, but are very powerful tools. So inside of your notes near the end, we have the passing arguments using Lambda functions. And again, the terminology is a little tricky at the start, but the main thing is that a Lambda expression is going to be a Python expression, and it's not going to be a statement that returns an object that is a function. Now that seems like a lot, but we can actually go ahead and create a few examples of Lambda expressions. Most notably in the example provided for us, I'm going to go ahead and copy it over into our code. So what I could say is create a Lambda expression that takes in x, y, z as parameters, and then combines x plus y plus z. Now if I go ahead and I call this expression, I now have the value 9 that's given to me. I can also go ahead and make different Lambda expressions work for us. We do a, b, c for this one. And what I would like to do is I can do a times b minus c. Daisy. Forgot my d right there. And then I could say z of, let's do 1 times 2. So I'll get 2 and then a 1 after it. And you'll notice that I'll get 1 times 2, which is 2, minus 1, which is 1 as well. So again, this is essentially what Lambda expressions are. And they're very powerful because they are going to be expressions that can take in parameters, and they're not blocks of statements. So usually we might have a scenario where a function won't really be able to do what we want it to do. And in that scenario, we won't be able to look at how it works. So as an example here, inside of your week 4 folder, where Lambda expressions are useful is inside of this personal file right here. And if you open up this personal file, you'll see that up here, inside of my function reply, I have the normal format of the event handler that we're used to. So again, what does this do? This goes ahead and it takes in a label that says enter your name. And then inside of this, we have an entry box, which is similar to a text box a little bit. Let's go ahead and try to run this here. I'll run main like so. And so we get a label that says enter your name. I get an entry box. Oops, excuse me. An entry box that goes ahead and takes in items for us. And then you'll notice here that a bit differently, we have this variable called CMD or command. And what it's equal to is the expression, the Lambda expression of the function reply end.get. So essentially we are running a function and we have a Lambda expression being returned. Now what we could say here is after we have this Lambda expression returned, we can simply say button is equal to the button of top, text is equal to submit, and the command is actually going to be equal to, instead of the function reply, it's going to be equal to the Lambda expression. So if I go ahead and I type in John like usual, there we go. I get I get my reply back. Now, again, in the notes, you'll notice that this isn't the best because, like, what's the purpose? I could just say reply right here, and doesn't it work just the same? Let's check it out. So let me say John. Oops. And you'll notice here that in this scenario, because I'm not providing it the parameter of the name that I get in, I'm going to have to do a little bit more work. But you can see here, because I'm providing the entry.get into my function here, let me go ahead and actually just copy this function down to here. Yep, and now I get the hello. And if I go ahead and I just type in John again, like so, should work for us. So again, in this scenario, it's not the best because the Lambda expression can easily be replaced by a normalized function. And what we can do here is take a look at personal 2, where we're rewriting it without using that Lambda expression. And now we can see that we get this function called command that goes ahead and it runs the function reply for us, and then it goes ahead and grabs the entry box that's called ENT. It uses .get to get items from that entry box, and again, these are all built into your tkinter class. And after it's built in from there, we could go ahead and then try to run this one too without using that Lambda. Let's use main. Let's say John. And I get hello, John. So again, what's the difference here? Which one is better? Well, in our scenario here, the Lambda expression is kind of redundant in comparison to using it over here, where we have a command that runs for us. So it's kind of hard to see the power right now because we're thinking, okay, well, this is just two different ways to do the same thing. Where Lambda expressions are extremely useful is where they are able to be used when functions cannot be used. So if I actually go ahead and I open up personal tree, you'll see inside of here that we can actually migrate the command into the actual command line of this creation of the button. And what that means is that instead of having to create another command that's outside of this button creation, your command can simply be a Lambda expression. So what you could say is, hey, inside of this command here, make it a Lambda expression that is the function call of getting my name from this function here. And again, command that are Lambda commands can be very useful here because they are evaluating to an expression that the command here can go ahead and run for us. So this is where you would want to use Lambda commands in this scenario, where it is that full expression and it returns that object for us, that is that function. Excellent. And again, because Lambdas are going to be returning function definition that we can go ahead and use inside of a single expression and not a block of code. And again, when I say block of code, what do I mean by that? Well, I wouldn't be able to get something that says definition, let's see here, if I can go ahead and try to grab it again, where I can do def command inside of here. I wouldn't be able to do something like def command and then go from there. That will be impossible inside of this piece of code here, but this Lambda expression can essentially do it for us, which is where they're a lot more powerful than the alternative. Now, with that being said, with how powerful they are, we can actually go ahead and ignore using lambdas altogether if we use these object-oriented concepts that we used as well previously, and this is inside of the personal OO, or object-oriented file. Now, there's quite a bit going on inside of here, and you'll notice immediately we already kind of just import everything, but what happens is that we created a personal class that inherits from TK, again, whatever is inside of these parentheses are the parent class. And what do I go ahead and do? I set the parent in here. And again, this is kind of the regular format that you'll see inside of each of your objects that you're working with inside of tkinter. This init is going to be normalize what we do. And now instead of trying to say root.title and root.everything else, we can simply say self.title of echo and then self.makeWidgets. And makeWidgets is going to be a built-in class function that runs, and what it runs is it runs the simple code of creating a label. It goes ahead and it creates an entry, and you'll notice that when we're using an object-oriented version, it gets a little bit more convoluted when we have to get the button, so we do self.entry.get. Same type of idea though, where we go ahead and run it. And after that, we notice that we have our new command inside of this makeWidgets function that simply goes ahead and returns the self.reply for us. So again, which way is the most effective here? Well, again, it's very important to understand that you can use all three of these ways. The Lambda expression route is useful if you are in a scenario where you can't use a function. If you don't want to use lambdas, you can convert your tkinter and your class over to an object-oriented version of the class as well. Or you could simply rely on handlers and event handlers too. Please familiarize yourself a bit with the personal OO class. It's a very useful example, and it shows off how you can convert the normal type of tkinter code we've been doing in a kind of scripting fashion over to an object-oriented class that holds quite a bit of information. Again, it's quite a bit to add on because you have to add on the self. But again, the same concepts that we were learning in the last 3 weeks are applied right here as well. Awesome, everybody. So there was quite a bit of information this week with tkinter. Again, please look through all of these examples. There is another object-oriented example here of basic calculator. Try to look at the normal calculator version inside of the tkinter, where it's just the code that's given right away, and compare it to the object-oriented version. And let me know if you have any questions. There is going to be discussion posts up, and we are meeting Tuesday and Thursday as well. So please let me know if you have any questions. Great work, everyone.